So I was a career soldier for just short of 28 years. I grew up in Brisbane, went to high school in Redcliffe, where I was in Army Cadets. When I joined the Army in '92, I went through recruit training down at Wagga Wagga, where I was allocated to the Corps of Royal Australian Engineers. Different types of combat engineering, so bridges, roads, water purification, demolitions. In 2003, I made the decision to specialise in the area of explosive ordnance disposal. In layman's terms, it's the military's version of the bomb squad. In 1998, I deployed to Bougainville. My main job over there was water purification. Very exciting to get that opportunity to deploy overseas for the first time. That was actually quite a good trip. You get to see a different side of life though. You know, throughout all the briefings, you're told that be prepared that it's like a third world country, everything's been destroyed, but you don't really understand that until you actually land on the ground. When I was purifying water, a lot of the local kids would always come around and you get to know them and you play games with them. And yeah, so I deployed to Bougainville 1 month before I got married, so that was a quite interesting time for Helene. She had to plan the wedding and deal with all that side of it by herself when I'm in another country trying to help the locals. Your first deployment, like Bougainville, gets you ready for what you're going to expect to see. It wasn't much better, so the people that you feel sorry for the most when you go into these countries are the kids, but it's always the kids that seem to have the best outlook on life. It's situations like that where you start to have an understanding of the sacrifices that are made by people in the ADF. You are so driven to serve something bigger than yourself, and that's probably the biggest reason why you join. The Iraq deployment was extremely different to the first two deployments that I had, where it was a war-torn country, a lot of civil unrest, a lot of damage. The risk was extremely high, and back in that time within the ADF, I suppose, there was no armoured vehicles, so our vehicle was an Army Land Rover with tarps on the side that we would just roll up. There was 3 of us in the team. We had a half-ton trailer on the back of the Rover that was to transport all of our explosive ordnance that we could move. Our only protection was body armour and our weapons. We had American escorts to the front and back of us in 2 Humvees. As soon as the sun was up, we were driving out the gate to go and deal with a room full of ordnance, and it could have been surface-to-air missiles, air-to-surface, artillery, mines, anti-personnel mines, anti-tank mines. The first job was a semi-trailer that was just full of all different types of munitions that had been shot by a tank, and it just threw munitions everywhere, maybe 200 by 200 metres in the middle of Baghdad. You've got the nerves are going, you're shaking. So, and there was a mixture of high explosives, white phos, heat rounds. You didn't know if the local insurgency had gone in there and started to booby trap stuff as well, because they saw us going back in there day after day. I suppose the most difficult part of Iraq was, it was just a constant state of readiness. So you were hyper vigilant all the time. I'd be on the phone to Helene, back to the family, and she could hear the faint sound of explosions in the background where there'd be a battle, or Americans were bombing something, or the insurgency were trying to hit vehicles or whatever. You want to be able to help people, serve the country. You want to try and make a difference. And it's moments like that when you start missing birthdays and births, or tragedies in families as well. Like there's been deaths in Helene's family that I haven't been able to come back for because I've been in a highly specialised role. The best moment from Iraq, I suppose, would be we were doing our second job, which was once again a stack of explosive ordnance that the locals had been trying to get rid of They were so happy though that there was finally someone there to take the ordnance away, that this little girl came up to us with flowers and gave us flowers as a gesture of thanks. That was, yeah, I suppose that moment will probably stay with me forever, because it's just those little things. The next deployment was to Afghanistan with Reconstruction Task Force 3. I was a part of the EOD team. That was a different type of deployment again. So that was our main job over there, was to neutralise and render safe the improvised IEDs. It's always interesting to walk towards a device that's in the ground and you don't have a clue what it is. You never got bored of using explosives, so it didn't matter how many times we would use explosives, it was always like the rush of, yeah, we're blowing something up against it. That was pretty cool. So that was pretty cool. So we always had a catch cry that we would have every time we blew something up, but I won't say what that is on camera because it involves, you know, a bit of swearing and stuff, but it was all good. We did get a break to come home on that deployment. So I find that to be harder though for the families, because you come home, especially for young kids, you come home, you spend time with the kids, and then you got to try and, yeah, you're only home for about 10 days, I think it is. Then you got to try and explain to your young kids that you got to go back over again. But once again, you're doing it because you believe in a greater cause. I then got posted to Sydney to Special Operations Command, where we did numerous roles there. So TAG East, so counter-terrorism East here in Australia, and then I did 2 deployments to Afghanistan within that command as well. There is no ambient light anywhere, so it's just dark. It's like, I've never seen anything so dark in my life, but the stars are insane. The hardest moments for those was being able to talk to the family, so because we're constantly out on mission. So you'd be out for, your mission would go anywhere from 4 days to 2 weeks, and you'd only be back from each mission time just to refit the vehicles and your equipment. So you couldn't just pick up a phone or get on the internet to speak to your family. There's a lot that you can't say, so the kids don't really understand it. They want to know what you're doing, but you don't want to tell them what you're doing, because you see a lot of evil, I suppose, is probably the best way to explain it. You see how evil people can be to each other. That's probably the downside of the job. You're constantly on a high. So you're on a high for 9 months, because those 2 last trips overseas were for 9 months and no breaks. Even back at the camp, sometimes the camp was being hit by mortars or 107 rockets from the insurgents as well. My mind was constantly ticking over, because I was also the search commander as well. You'd have to decide when you got the searchers out to search, or you don't have that ability to switch off for a night or for a period of time. And the effect that has on the mind, body and soul is that after 9 months of being hypervigilant, and then you come home, you can't turn that hypervigilance off. So you come home, you go on leave, you then go back to work, and then you start going through the pre-deployment training again, the security briefs, the intelligence briefs. The way that you train your guys can be the difference between bringing everyone home or not bringing everyone home. So that's constantly in the back of your mind as well. So in 2019, I was at work. I was in Brisbane at the time, posted to Brisbane. Had a massive meltdown at work where everyone went into a bit of a mad panic, and they rushed me to the hospital, being treated by psychiatrists and psychologists to try and just calm me down. And that was the reason for my departure from Army. The hardest thing to accept from that is the abrupt halt to your career. You're found to be not fit for service anymore due to the traumas that you've been exposed to over your lifetime of service, I suppose is the best way to put it. The effect that it has on me now is that I don't like crowds, I don't like loud noises, I don't like a lot of background noises. You tend to absorb the energy of the room, which then sends your hypervigilance through the roof. You want to leave, you distance yourself from people and from events, you just want to stay home. There were warning signs, but you just put it down to being tired, overworked. I think it did blindside us a bit, so you know, you have trouble sleeping, but you put it down to like, because the higher up in the ranks that you go, the expectations get higher and higher and higher and the workload gets bigger. When I had my breakdown, I've never cried so hard in my life and just couldn't stop. And that was the moment where all my mates at work just went, oh my God, what's going on? And but they were really good. All my mates were really good to help me and take me to the hospital, to the base hospital, to get me to start this whole new journey that I'm on now. I got told that I had high functioning depression. So if you have an individual that keeps himself super busy, is constantly putting their hand up to do stuff, taking on a lot of different roles outside of their designated role, that can be a good thing, but you need to look at maybe why are they doing that. Stuff that I've noticed from soldiers that I've helped in the past as well is that if their performance all of a sudden starts to drop, a situation where you probably need to have that one-on-one discussion, the rank's taken off the table, so they're just talking to you like a human, like an equal is probably the best way to do it. I think the military has definitely improved since I joined the Army about the effects, the injuries on the mind. You lack the knowledge of it unless you've lived it, I believe. So I've been living this dream since about February 2019. So it does get better with the assistance of your family and the specialist doctors and stuff like that as well. And your mates that have the same deployed type experience are probably the only ones that you can really talk to in detail about, you know, this is what I witnessed, or I'm more aware now of warning signs that I'm starting to feel a certain way, and Helene is awesome with that as well, and so are the girls. The effect that it's had on me though is that I'll never be able to work full time again. I can't handle the pressure. So for me, pressure, time pressure, or multiple pressures for me are one of those things that I just now need to live with. I'm a veteran of 28 years, but I'm still a citizen of Australia. I'm still just an average person who just decided to join the military and to try and serve something bigger than themselves. Very, very happy here in Townsville. I love Townsville from the first time I came to Townsville in '93, and that's why I've always fought to come back to Townsville. And I look forward to remaining a citizen of Townsville and helping the community where I can.